was insane. And like, again, he's such a sweetheart. Like, I never thought about it.
Yeah.
And so like, it was just so funny. And like,
Okay.
he's so
was that your
yeah.
second semester of interning that you were doing more of the A&R stuff?
Yes and no. So that was more into halfway through the first semester is kind of when he joined. It was a very unexpected thing. It was very political, where they just happened to come together, build a rock label for Nashville, because there's a lot of rock that's up and coming.
Yeah.
But, you know,
and there's a lot of rock artists that, as they've gotten a little bit older, at least in the bands that I follow, that have started to gravitate towards Nashville.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So after your year of internship, then you come into your senior year of college. And then how did you spend your senior, like, were you just, after you left your internship, were you just like, God, I can't wait to get out of school and just get into the music industry? Or did you enjoy being a senior? What was that like?
Yes and no. So during my internship, what I mentioned previously is I ran into this woman. Her name was Charlotte. And so, right. No, you're good. So basically what happened is like, she was like, I need 2 interns. And so I was like, oh, okay, like, we're 2 interns. And so we ended up interning at what's called a radio remote, where all these artists will go around, do interviews with different radio stations. All these radio stations pay to be there. Also, they have a St. Jude tent, different stuff like that. And so all that being said, like, I would have to lead around several different artists and just be like, okay, like, I like was part of the guitar signing for charity. So I'd be like, hey, can you sign all these guitars? Hey, can you do this, and just talk to the artists and get to know them and be really nice and everything. And so I kind of had that background. And so I'd gotten used to, seeing one of the biggest artists in country and being like, hey man, what's up? Just being super sweet, super nice, very reserved, not like a fan, not like a huge fan. They're called germs. So you never want to be that. You never want to go in and be like, can I have your autograph? Can I have your photo? Can I have this? Like,
right.
Even at this point, like, I mean, freshman year, yeah, I would ask people for photos all the time, but like now, unless they ask you to take a photo, you don't. So it's like all this different stuff. So I had that background. And so during my senior year of college, it was like wild. Like, I don't even know how to like, so I ended up going through a lot of like mental health stuff, unfortunately, from just like a really bad relationship I was in. And so like, I ended up just kind of going through having all this mental health stuff and kind of navigating that. And so I ended up kind of stepping away from the music industry a little bit, to where I was kind of, because I had been working, I had 8 a.m. classes, but been in the studio till like 9 o'clock at night at my internship the previous semester. And so I was just kind of still coming off that, which is totally fine, but I had never taken the chance to, really focus in on my mental health and be like, okay, I need to sit down, I need to focus, and like, I need to actually like figure out, my depression, my anxiety, all this different stuff. And because like you cannot run a business 24/7. You really can't, like, by yourself.
Don't I know it?
Oh yeah, I'm sure you do, honestly. But yeah, so my senior year was really when I just kind of was able to kind of focus in on that. And so I still did a lot of different events, and I still helped a lot of different people. And there's like a lot of different cool things that you can get into up here, where basically they'll record you and like a bunch of different people in a pool party for like the Hot 20 countdown on CMT. And so like, I was put into this rolling list where I would go in and I would help all these different people by being an extra in like their different videos, their different stuff. So I did that for like most of my senior year, which is so cool.
That is cool.
I helped with CMT. So I was able to go through and actually, help with different artists and like all this different stuff. And so I was able to go through and kind of be like a PA assistant, where we went through and we put up all these signs and we really directed people we put a stage in the center of downtown Broadway, which is the most crazy, busy, packed part of Nashville, into like Dierks Bentley's Whiskey Row. So we had to lead all of these people up into Whiskey Row. And so it was just like madness. So I was able to help with that. It was absolute madness. And so I was able to help with all these different production companies. And like, I was also able to help with Eric Church, who does a golf tournament every year to benefit something called Music Cares, which is basically health insurance for musicians.
Oh, and yeah. Which I've heard a little bit more about, especially these last 6 months or so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge, awesome program. It's kind of, if you need something like emergency health insurance, or if you need like if you need custom earplugs, if you're an audio engineer, all this different stuff. And then there's also ones called like Porter's Call, which is more focusing on the mental health of like, they service a lot of different major artists with their mental health, because that's like starting to become a huge thing in the music industry, which is really needed. Because, you know, when you become super famous, you don't quite understand all the things that come with it. I mean, even we talked about Lady Gaga earlier, even in her newest album, you know, she talks about PTSD, she talks about sexual assault, she talks about all this different stuff. And it's a phenomenal album. And you're kind of listening to it and you're like, okay, this is super catchy. And then you're like, oh wait, this is about her having a panic attack. Like, you're literally sitting there and you're like, wait a second, this is kind of terrible, but like, so it makes sense. And so it's like all these different companies. So I started I didn't work with Porter's Call, but I worked with Music Cares. And so working with all these different companies, and then kind of once I graduated, here's the weird part they don't necessarily always tell you at Belmont. So they tell you, okay, let me back up real quick. No shade on Belmont. No shade on Belmont at all. Fantastic school, made a lot of great connections. If I had not gone there, I probably would not be where I am today. But that aside, they tell you it's 100% job acceptance, a job placement rate. But they don't tell you that being a barista counts as a job.
Yeah, so I can relate to this, because my college was the same way, and I was the only music performance major that was not going on to grad school, because like, who gets a degree in guitar performance and then, you know, tries to just go out and fend for themselves, right? So, but I was just like, I don't think I can do any more college stuff. As much as I wanted to get a PhD in guitar and have people call me doctor, you know, but that didn't seem like a worthwhile endeavor. So, yeah, they had a job guarantee thing as well. But as soon as I graduated and all my friends did, and we all started going our separate ways, and everyone started getting jobs in unrelated fields to what their degree was in. And that was the first time that I started questioning, like, maybe college is not necessarily the end all be all answer for how to get started with your path in law.
Absolutely. And it is the type of thing where, like, you know, they tell us like, oh, the amount of connections that you have, like, you're going to be in a job, blah, 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 all this stuff. And it's like, I did end up getting a job pretty soon after I graduated, but it turned out not to be, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So it ended up being not what I expected it to be. So I did a lot of the metadata behind music. So it's a lot of kind of the ones and zeros behind music. And it was way more computer heavy than I had realized. And so it was just the type of thing where, like, I would have to know.
That does not sound like a good fit for you.
No. And so, like, it was kind of one of those situations where it's like, my friend was like, hey, this might be beneficial for you to kind of understand the background. Like, let me talk to my boss and like see if you can get hired. And it turned into like, oh, okay, well, I want to have a conversation with you, like the head of the company. And I was like, sure, no problem. So I come in, didn't really say it was like an interview, but it kind of was. And then at the end of it, she didn't really ask me a whole lot about my computer experience. It was kind of more about my music experience, which is fine. But then she ended up saying like, oh yeah, you're hired. And I was like, I wasn't even quite asking to be hired. Like, which obviously I was grateful, but I just kind of ended up learning it wasn't really my thing. The company is called Viva. They're very, very great, very talented people. Just not my thing at all.
That like, role is not a good fit for your personality. You're someone who, it sounds like your internship was much more in line with your personality, which is dealing with artists, managing, talking with people, and that kind of thing.
Totally. And so it's like, actually before this job that I had, I ended up I ended up working at a bar on downtown Broadway as an audio engineer. I'm not gonna say which bar, because like I don't want to unnecessarily like crap on them really, but right, like worst experience of my entire life, worst place I've ever worked. They work you 12-hour shifts with no breaks. You're not allowed to sit down. You're not allowed to like get breaks. Borderline illegal, but you also sign away your right to have breaks. They pay the bartenders $2 an hour.
Which I think is kind of typical for restaurant industry, because you live off of tips.
But they didn't tell us that they were taking, we think, this is kind of a big conspiracy kind of, that they started stealing tips from all the bartenders.
Oh, not good.
Which is very illegal, very illegal. There's like a huge lawsuit about it, which might lead to what bar I worked at, but I'm not gonna say what it was. But basically, we think they might have been taking those tips to pay us. We don't know 100%. I mean, this place was bleeding money. It was awful. Worst place I've ever worked. I have not been screamed at so much. I have not been cussed out so much. Like, I will have people come up to me and just like say like, you know, F you, you're not doing your job. What are you doing? And they're like, you know, because they're deaf, washed up musicians sometimes. Yeah. And like, I hate saying that, but it's like, you know, all these people are thinking they're, you know, top of the top. They think they're Garth Brooks, which Garth Brooks is a sweetheart. So it's like the weirdest thing. But like, and like, I know that for a fact, like he's such a sweetheart. So it's the weirdest thing where it's like all these people think they're like living legends, but they're like, you sit down and you start tuning their monitor, and which is like the speaker in front of you where basically you can hear yourself sing. So you're starting to tune the monitor, and it's like you're cutting out so many frequencies that you're like, how can you even still hear this? You know, because a lot of people don't tell you, like for anybody listening, please protect your ears, please protect your hearing. Like that is one of the biggest takeaways from this. Mental health, hearing, audio engineer. Like please protect your hearing. Like invest in, you know, custom earplugs might seem a bit expensive, but please work towards that. Like I have negative 60 decibel custom earplugs because I worked on Broadway. Wow. Everybody else that I worked with was either tripping acid or they were deaf.
Oh my gosh.
Like that's awful. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like that was awful. It was so bad. I had to wear custom earplugs, and at the point I had to put noise canceling headphones over the custom earplugs. It was that bad.
Wow, how about that? Yeah, no, that's great, because I definitely I've had a low level of tinnitus for years, and I know it's not going to get any better, and it's only going to be downhill from here.
Please protect your ears. Protect your ears.
I
worked there.
Yeah, I'm a little anal retentive about protecting my ears for sure.
Yes.
So okay, so you worked at this place, and by the way, it seems like, what little I know about the music industry is that people who are highly successful tend to not be terrible human beings. And I'm wondering if some of these, as you put it, deaf musicians who are like, go to these bars to die or whatever, they, perhaps one of the things keeping them from that star status is the fact that they think they are that star power already.
That's one of the biggest things. I will back up and say it is a good place to get practice. It is a good place, you know, if you don't stay in that environment for so long. Broadway used to be phenomenal. I mean, you used to be able to go down here, you know, a ton of different fantastic bands. You used to be able to walk from place to place.
Is Broadway the main strip in Nashville?
Yes.
Yeah. So when I was 22 and maybe I was 20, and I visited Belmont, and we went and it was like a weeknight, and we went and just walked up the strip, and it was like every bar had live music coming out, and all of it was fantastic. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, so unfortunately now it's kind of taken a nosedive. I mean,
well,
a lot of people
also, especially since this pandemic, right?
That's another thing. But I mean,
before that?
Even before that. So a lot of people, some people will agree with me, some people won't. That's just totally my experience. And like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, this is it for everybody. Like, this was just my experience at this one bar. People might have been phenomenal at different bars. You know, I had a lot of different friends that played at phenomenal bars. And so I'm not saying that it's like, you know, everybody's experience. But at the same time, it's like, now it's called Nash Vegas. And now you have all these tourists coming in, and you have all these, I mean, I will not go on Broadway. I will stay far away from Broadway. I will not go on Broadway. You used to be able to go down even by yourself on a weekend night or on a weeknight, meet all these like fantastic people. Sorry, hold on one second. Let me go grab this. Sorry, my pump just broke. 1 second.